You ever hear a joke that made you laugh? Not because it was funny, but because it got too close to something you didn't want to admit? That was me, the night Ava came back. We were sitting around the dinner table, candles flickering low, plates half cleared. My wife, Amber, had cooked. Not her usual thrown-together pasta or last-minute Uber Eats. She'd actually made coco vin with rosemary potatoes. I only remember because I asked if she'd followed a recipe or watched a YouTube chef. She gave me a tight little smile and said, "Neither. I just felt like doing something different tonight." That should have been my first clue. Across from me, Ava, Amber's identical twin, poured herself another glass of wine. She'd just flown in from Barcelona after 4 years abroad. There was something about the way she moved, the way she curled her legs under her, the way her laugh came too easily, that lit a fuse I wasn't aware existed anymore. She'd always been the more impulsive one, the twin with stories, the wild side. The one who'd almost gotten me arrested for skinny dipping in college. And now she was back, looking like Amber with the volume turned up. We were on our third bottle of wine when it happened. "So," Ava said, swirling the deep red liquid in her glass. "Still the doting husband, Liam? Still wake up early to bring Amber her coffee? Still fold her laundry?" Amber smirked, not denying it. "Still refuse to use the dryer for my sweaters," she added, nudging me playfully with her knee under the table. "Hey," I said. "The label says delicate for a reason." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Adorable. You really can't tell us apart sometimes, huh?" I gave a tired smile. "Oh, I can tell." Amber laughed, but it was forced, or maybe just distant. Ava leaned forward, chin resting in her hand, and let out a low, teasing hum. "Maybe you'd enjoy a little wife swap. Just to shake things up. I could take Amber's place for a weekend. I doubt you'd even notice." There was a moment of silence, a beat too long, and then we all laughed, loud, overcompensating. But when I glanced at Amber, she didn't say a word, didn't roll her eyes or scoff, or even call her sister ridiculous. She just sipped her wine and stared at me over the rim of her glass. That laugh stuck in my throat. Later, when I was brushing my teeth, I found Amber standing in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing one of my old college t-shirts she hadn't touched in years. Her eyes were unreadable. "Do you think you'd know?" she asked. I turned off the tap. "Know what? If it were Ava instead of me? If we swapped places?" I laughed again, weaker this time. "What kind of question is that? Humor me." I studied her. "Of course I'd know. Hear you." Amber stepped into the bathroom and leaned against the counter next to me. Her voice dropped an octave. "Would you really? I mean, it's been 9 years, Liam. Same face, same voice, same everything. Could you feel the difference?" I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how. Then she smiled. It didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good night," she said softly. And she left. That night, I dreamt of a hand reaching under the sheets, small, soft, familiar. But when I looked up in the dream, the face was blurred. Amber's and Ava's features flickered in and out like a glitch. And I woke up hard, sweating, with my wife curled beside me like nothing had changed. Except something had. I just didn't know what yet. A few days later, I found myself replaying that dinner over and over in my head. The way Ava had looked at me. The way Amber hadn't corrected her. The way something inside me had stirred, something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just about sex or curiosity. It was about attention. Amber and I, we weren't in trouble, exactly. But we'd become predictable. Her kisses were pecks. Her touch habitual. Conversations started fading after "how was work?" and ended with a distracted nod before sleep. Comfortable. Safe. But dull. With Ava back, it was like someone cracked a window in a stuffy room. She challenged me, teased me, noticed me. She asked questions that Amber hadn't in years. Hell, she looked at me like I was still the man worth chasing. And maybe, just maybe, I looked back. 1 week later, the three of us sat down to dinner again. This time, Thai takeout, more wine. I was loosening up, laughing too easily at Ava's stories about ex-lovers and long nights in foreign cities. Amber just watched, fingers curled loosely around her wine glass. Then, she said it. "Let's try something," Amber said suddenly, cutting Ava off mid-sentence. "An experiment." Ava tilted her head. "I'm listening." "Let's play a game," Amber said. "A trust experiment." I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" She turned to me. "For 1 weekend, Ava will pretend to be me. And you won't know when it starts. Or when it ends. Just instinct. Feel the difference. You think you'd notice, right? I stared at her, unsure if she was serious. You're joking, I said. Amber smiled. Am I? Ava's grin widened. Ooh, this just got interesting. Amber stood, taking her empty glass to the sink. Love is instinct, she said over her shoulder. You'll feel it, or you won't. That night, we didn't talk about it again. She kissed me goodnight, a real kiss, deep and deliberate, like she hadn't kissed me in years. And I fell asleep wondering if I was being tested, punished, or invited. But one thing was already clear. The joke had stuck, and it wasn't funny anymore. I didn't know when it started. That was the whole point, wasn't it? Amber said, it'll begin when it begins, and left it there, like she was handing over a riddle instead of our marriage. Ava just smirked, like she'd been handed the world's most delicious secret. The weekend came on slowly. No announcement, no signal, just a shift in energy. Friday morning, Amber kissed me goodbye like usual, a soft press to my cheek, barely there, and left for her weekly yoga class. Or said she did. She wore her favorite navy leggings and a zip-up hoodie, hair in a ponytail, no makeup. I watched her drive off like a man staring at the edge of a cliff and wondering if it had always been that steep. I spent the day restless, checking my phone too often, half listening in meetings, trying not to picture what Amber and Ava were planning, or if they were even planning anything at all. By 6 p.m., I was home, pouring myself a whiskey and pacing the kitchen. I could hear the faint sounds of someone upstairs. Shower running, doors creaking, drawers opening, then silence. When I turned around, she was standing in the doorway. Same honey-brown hair, still damp. Same green eyes, framed in just enough mascara to be noticeable. She wore one of Amber's old band t-shirts, oversized and falling off one shoulder, paired with the silk shorts she sometimes slept in. Hey, she said softly, I ordered sushi. Something was off. Not wrong, just different. Amber rarely ordered food without asking. She never said, hey, like that, like a secret she wasn't sure she wanted to share. Still, I nodded. Sounds good. She padded barefoot into the living room and curled up on the couch. I followed, still unsure if I was sitting with my wife or her sister. I watched her from the corner of my eye as she picked up the remote, scrolled through Netflix, and landed on some noir French film neither of us had seen. You never pick foreign stuff, I said. She tilted her head. Maybe I felt like subtitles. A beat. Is this part of the game? I asked. She gave me a sly look. What game? Then she smiled. A full smile, slow and bold. The kind Amber hadn't worn in years. That night, we didn't have sex, but we sat closer than usual. Her leg brushed mine more than once. When the movie got intense, she curled into me, and I let her. Her body was warm and relaxed, like it belonged there, like it had always belonged there. At midnight, she kissed me, quick, teasing, just the edge of her mouth on mine. Good night, she whispered. She disappeared upstairs, leaving me on the couch, heart pounding like a goddamn teenager. Saturday morning felt like waking up inside a question. She was already downstairs when I came in, hair messy, robe loosely tied, humming while she cracked eggs into a pan. The smell of bacon filled the air. Amber hadn't made breakfast in weeks. She turned when she saw me and grinned. Hungry? Starving, I said, staring. She moved around the kitchen like she'd been born in it, like every drawer was familiar, every ingredient intentional. She was barefoot again. Amber always wore socks. And she was humming some jazz melody I didn't recognize. I watched the curve of her back as she reached for a plate. Her robe slipped just slightly, exposing a hint of hip. She caught me looking. See something you like? I cleared my throat. You're different today. Am I? She brought the plate to the table. Eggs, toast, bacon. She even sliced avocado the way I liked it, fanned like a little green rose. Are you Ava? I asked. She blinked, tilting her head, eyes sparkling. Would it matter if I was? I think it would. But only if you knew, right? She leaned in, voice low. Love is instinct. That's what she said, isn't it? I didn't answer. By Saturday night, I was unraveling. We'd spent the day side by side. A hike in the hills, spontaneous and unplanned, something Amber never suggested. We stopped for tacos, shared a beer at some dive bar with a jukebox. She knew my order. She laughed at my dumb jokes. She touched my arm when she talked. She looked like my wife, sounded like her, but she felt like someone else. And I didn't hate it. That scared the hell out of me. Back home, she disappeared into the bathroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands. Then the door opened, and she stepped out wearing one of Amber's black silk slips, the one she hadn't worn since our anniversary 2 years ago. My throat went dry. She walked over slowly, sat beside me, and traced her finger along my jaw. Her touch was gentle, intentional. "You're quiet," she whispered. I swallowed. "I don't know who I'm with." She leaned in, lips brushing my ear. "Maybe that's the point." Then she kissed me, and I kissed her back. It was different, more urgent, more alive, like she was trying to prove something, or claim it. Her hands were bolder, her mouth demanding. She moved like she wanted to be memorized, and I let her. We didn't speak after, just curled into each other, breathless and silent. And in the dark, I asked, "Are you her?" No answer, just a slow kiss to my shoulder, and the sound of her breath evening out as she drifted off. I lay awake, heart racing, staring at the ceiling. If this wasn't Amber, why did it still feel like love? I woke to the scent of coffee, drifting in like a memory that didn't quite belong. She was in the kitchen, barefoot again, dancing softly to something playing through her phone speaker. Some bluesy guitar riff, not Amber's usual playlist. She didn't like music in the mornings, but the woman at the counter did. Wearing my white button-down, unbuttoned halfway, sleeves rolled, hair messy, no bra. She turned when she heard me step in. "Hey, sleepyhead." I tried to smile. "That smells amazing." She beamed. "French press. I figured if we're pretending to be French film lovers now, we might as well drink like them too." I laughed, but it was cautious. "You're really committed to this role." Her expression flickered, but only for a second. "Isn't that the point?" She poured me a cup, handed it over with a kiss on the cheek, lips warm, lingering, too deliberate. Amber hadn't kissed me in the kitchen in months, maybe longer. We sat down at the island. She crossed her legs under her, her bare thigh brushing mine. "So," she said, grinning, "did I pass the test?" I blinked. "What test?" "Come on," she teased. "You've been looking at me like I'm a stranger all weekend. I figured by now you'd know. Don't you feel the difference?" She raised her brow, daring me. I hesitated. My gut twisted in a knot of dread and curiosity. "It feels," I said slowly, "like I'm married to a stranger who knows every detail of my life." Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes, God, her eyes, sparked with something sharper. "Maybe that's what marriage is," she said. "A stranger who just keeps getting more familiar. Or less." She stood and stretched, shirt riding up. Her body, Amber's body, looked the same. Same freckle under the left breast. Same scar on her ankle from the summer she fell off her bike. But something was off, and that's when I saw it. A tiny silver anklet glinting in the sunlight. Barely there, but unmistakably new. Amber didn't wear ankle jewelry. Ever. She said it made her feel like a teenager. That was Ava's thing. Always had been. My coffee went cold in my hand. The rest of the day passed in a blur of suspicion and arousal. Every movement she made, I watched. Every smile, every touch, every habit. I cataloged it like evidence in a trial. She laughed more easily than Amber. She talked with her hands more. When we watched TV, she curled into my side differently. Tighter, hungrier. Her kisses lingered at the corner of my mouth, like she was tasting the boundary between affection and temptation. And then there was dinner. She made pasta. Not just spaghetti, handmade tagliatelle. I walked into the kitchen and found dough everywhere, flour in her hair, red sauce simmering on the stove. Amber hated cooking from scratch. Said it wasn't worth the mess. "Where did you learn to do all this?" I asked. She froze for a second, the smallest crack in her performance. Then shrugged. "Barcelona," she said. "The ex-boyfriend was a chef. Guess I picked up a few things." I nodded slowly. Amber had never lived in Barcelona, but Ava had. After dinner, she curled into me on the couch, wine glass in hand. "You've been quiet," she said softly. "I'm thinking," I replied. She kissed my neck. "About what?" "About identity," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "How fragile it really is. How easily it can be borrowed." She looked up at me, eyes glassy from wine, or something else. "You think I'm not Amber?" It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. She set her glass down and turned fully to face me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Would it bother you if I weren't?" My chest tightened. "I don't know," I admitted. And then she kissed me, deeply this time. Not like a wife. Not like a sister-in-law. Like a woman who wanted to be remembered in my bones. I responded. God help me, I did. We didn't make it to the bedroom. Right there on the living room floor, half-dressed, mouths frantic, hands greedy, we crossed another line. And in the middle of it, in the throes of something halfway between pleasure and panic, she whispered my name. But it didn't sound like Amber. It sounded like someone playing her, studying her, becoming her. And I let her. Later, as we lay tangled in each other, her breath warm against my chest, I listened. And then it happened. She started humming. A soft melody, under her breath, almost subconscious. A song I hadn't heard in years. Ava's favorite. Billie Holiday. I'll be seeing you. Amber never liked jazz. I felt cold all over. She stopped humming when she noticed me staring. What? She asked, voice small. I wanted to ask. I wanted to say it out loud. Rip the bandage. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed her forehead and pulled her closer, heart pounding. Because deep down, I already knew. The thing about suspicion is it starts like a hairline crack. Tiny, harmless, easy to ignore, until it spreads. Until every glance, every word, every touch feels like a test you didn't know you were taking. Monday morning, she was in the bathroom when I walked past the open door. I paused. The perfume bottle on the counter wasn't Amber's usual. It was new, foreign looking. I picked it up. Fleur Noir, dark flower. I'd never seen it before. Amber wore clean ring. She said it reminded her of spring. I sprayed a little onto my wrist. Sharp, musky, sensual. Ava's kind of scent. The kind that didn't ask permission. She stepped out of the shower just then, towel wrapped around her, hair dripping. I looked up from my wrist. New perfume. She hesitated, only a fraction of a second. She said. Gift from a client. Her tone was casual. Too casual. Amber hated unsolicited gifts. She always said, they come with strings. I nodded slowly, setting the bottle down. Smells nice. She smiled and walked past me. Glad you noticed. I told myself I was being paranoid. But the little things piled up like breadcrumbs. That evening, I came home to find her handwriting on the grocery list stuck to the fridge. Except it wasn't hers. Not quite. Same loops, same slanted A's, but the spacing was wrong. The S in eggs curled in a way Amber never wrote. She always made her lists vertically. This one was horizontal. Like a note. Like Ava's notes used to be when she was in college. Tomatoes, eggs, that ginger beer you like. That last one froze me. Amber didn't like ginger beer. Ava did. She used to mix it with rum and squeeze lime over the top. Amber always said it was too sweet. Then there was the scar. Or the absence of one. We were lying in bed. She was facing away from me, and I reached to run my fingers down her back. Something instinctive. Familiar. Except my fingers paused where the scar should have been. A faint crescent just above her right hip. Amber got it falling off her bike as a kid. But there was nothing. Just smooth, perfect skin. No scar. No sign of the story she used to tell with half a laugh and a wince. She rolled over, eyes sleepy. What's wrong? She asked. I shook my head. Nothing. But I couldn't sleep after that. The next day, I opened her jewelry drawer while she was in the shower. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Proof? Closure? A confession carved into a necklace clasp? What I found was small, almost insignificant. A ring. Thin gold. A single onyx stone in the center. Ava's old ring. I remembered it from years ago. She used to wear it constantly. Amber hated it. Called it witchy. I slipped it back into place just as she stepped into the bedroom, towel around her. Her eyes flicked to the drawer. Then to me. You looking for something? I smiled, lying effortlessly. Just checking if you'd taken the diamond studs. She grinned. I'm saving them for Friday. Girls' night. I nodded. But Amber never wore the onyx ring. And she never went out on Fridays. Not unless it was with me. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. We were curled up on the couch, some movie playing I wasn't watching, and I turned to her, heart pounding. Can I ask you something? She said, head on my shoulder. I looked at her, really looked. At her mouth, her nose, her eyes, same as Amber's, yet not. Something behind them was brighter, hungrier, more present. Are you really Amber? She didn't flinch. She didn't laugh. She smiled and leaned in, pressing her lips to mine, slowly, deeply. When she pulled back, her voice was barely a whisper. Would it bother you if I weren't? Silence. I stared at her, breath caught between fear and desire. And then she kissed me again, harder this time. Hands in my hair, mouth hot, urgent. No hesitation. I felt myself responding before my mind could catch up. Her body moved against mine like it knew me. Not from routine, but from obsession. And I let her. Afterward, lying in bed, my heart still racing, I stared at the ceiling. She was already asleep, peaceful, like she hadn't just detonated my reality with one kiss and one question. Would it bother you if I weren't? Yes. God, yes. And yet, no. Because whoever she was, Amber or Ava, she'd made me feel alive again. Made me want again. And that scared me more than anything. Because I was beginning to think I knew exactly who she was. And worse, I didn't want to stop her. The truth didn't arrive in some cinematic flash of lightning. No shouting. No confessions in the rain. It came quietly, like a thread unraveling behind you. By the time you look down, your whole sleeve is gone, and your skin's exposed. That Monday morning, I was making coffee when she walked in wearing my old hoodie, the faded gray one with the broken zipper that Amber never touched because she said it smelled like Jim's socks and nostalgia. But now, she was wearing it like it was hers. Bare legs, coffee in hand, and humming. That same song. Ava's song. Billie Holiday's I'll Be Seeing You. That was the last straw. The one I couldn't pretend I didn't notice. I didn't confront her, not right then. I just watched her move through the kitchen, light on her feet, playful. She touched my shoulder in passing, and it felt like heat through the fabric. She grinned at me over her mug, eyes sparkling like we were in on a joke together. But I wasn't laughing anymore. Later that night, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at her back as she pulled her hair into a bun. That body, my wife's body, was suddenly foreign. Or maybe too familiar in all the wrong ways. She turned and caught my stare. What? She asked. I swallowed. When did it start? She blinked. When did what start? I didn't smile. The weekend. The swap. She tilted her head, expression unreadable. You tell me. No. I said, standing up. I want to hear it from you. Are you Ava? Silence. Then, a small, almost guilty smile. For how long? I asked. She bit her bottom lip. Friday morning. Amber left for yoga. I stayed. I sat back down slowly. The breath left my lungs in one long, collapsing sigh. So it was you. All weekend. She nodded. My hands trembled. Jesus. She stepped toward me, tentative. You didn't know? I suspected, I said, voice cracking. The perfume. The song. The scar. Your handwriting. Ava, I'm not a complete idiot. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Then why didn't you stop? I looked at her, feeling every contradiction claw at my chest. Because I didn't want to, I said. And that broke something open between us. We didn't yell. We didn't fight. Instead, we sat on the edge of the bed, 2 inches apart and miles away. I didn't mean to trick you, she said softly. At first, it was just fun. Amber's idea. She said, let's see what he feels. Let's see if instinct means anything. She said you'd notice in an hour. And when I didn't, her smile faltered. She said to keep going, to push it. I didn't think it would go that far. But it did. She nodded. You kissed me, I said. You slept with me. You played her. I wasn't playing, she said, almost sharply. Not after Friday night. I looked at her. I meant every kiss, Liam, she continued. Every touch. That wasn't acting. I stood up, pacing. You're my wife's twin, Ava. I know. And you let me. You wanted to. I stopped in my tracks. That was the part one couldn't argue. Because she was right. I didn't sleep in our bed that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling in the dark, thinking about the things I had done. The things I had let happen. How easy it had been to lose my grip on what was real. How the woman I thought was Amber had become something more alive than the one I'd been married to for nearly a decade. And that realization turned my stomach. Because it didn't feel like cheating. Not exactly. It felt like remembering something I hadn't touched in years. Desire. Attention. Curiosity. Not just hers. Mine. In the morning, Amber was waiting at the kitchen table when I came downstairs. She looked tired. No makeup. Hair unwashed. She wore the soft gray sweater I bought her 2 birthdays ago, the one she'd only worn once. She didn't smile. Did she tell you? Amber asked. I nodded. And I don't know what to say. Amber looked down at her hands. Say how it felt. I sat across from her. Wrong. And right. And confusing as hell. She gave a bitter laugh. So you did notice. Not right away. But eventually. Eventually, I echoed. She met my eyes. Just not soon enough. The air between us thickened with guilt. You planned this. I asked. I needed to know, she said. If we still had something. If you still felt me. You and I, we've been fading for a long time, Liam. I didn't think it was this bad. It is, she said. And you didn't see it. So I wondered if I left and she took my place. Would you even feel the difference? Would your body know? Your heart? Or had we become interchangeable? She looked away. I needed to know if I was still real to you. I felt my throat tighten. And what did you learn? Her answer was a whisper. That I'm not. Amber wouldn't look at me for the first few minutes. We just sat in the kitchen, the silence pulsing between us like a third presence. She cradled a cup of tea, untouched, while her fingers fidgeted with the tag. I watched the steam rise, dissipate, then rise again. I never meant for it to go that far, she said finally. Her voice was flat, tired. I didn't speak. Amber looked up, meeting my eyes. You think I wanted to humiliate you? I don't know what to think, I said. Then let me tell you. She stood and walked to the window, arms folded across her chest like she needed to brace herself for what was coming. I've been invisible to you for over a year, Liam, she said. No, that's not fair, not invisible. You still ask about my day. You still say goodnight. You still kiss me goodbye in the mornings. But it's all surface. Safe. Scripted. She turned to face me. I needed to know if there was anything underneath it anymore. I wondered if it was just me who'd gone numb, or if you had too. So your solution was to run a what? A psychological experiment on me? Her jaw tightened. Don't reduce it. I stood. You left your twin in our house. In our bed. And you watched it happen like a scientist behind glass. I thought you'd stop it, she said, quieter now. I thought you'd know. The second she touched you, I thought something in you would snap. That you'd feel it wasn't me. I looked away. But you didn't, she said. You leaned into it. And I kept waiting for you to pull away. Her voice cracked. But you didn't. I opened my mouth to speak, but she held up a hand. There's more. She walked back to the table and sat down again. Ava didn't just do it for me. I frowned. What does that mean? She told me something. Afterward. Amber took a breath, steadying herself. She said it stopped being a game for her, too. I stared. She said she wasn't pretending anymore. That she wasn't trying to be me. She was trying to be with you. Silence. She said, he didn't kiss me like he was confused. He kissed me like he missed me. My heart pounded. She said you looked at her like you used to look at me, Liam. Not last year. Not last month. I mean years ago, when we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Amber's eyes were brimming now, but she didn't let the tears fall. She was supposed to help me prove something, she whispered. Instead, she proved something else entirely. I sank into the chair across from her. So this wasn't a game. No, she said. Not for her. And not for me. Once I saw how you looked at her. My throat burned. I didn't mean to. I know. She's your sister. She is. And you what? Forgave her? Amber gave a sad smile. You don't forgive someone for falling in love. You just decide whether it destroys you. That hit harder than I was ready for. I dropped my gaze. She told me she'd walk away, Amber said softly. Said she'd disappear if I asked. But I didn't know what to say. I lifted my eyes. I love you, she said. But I'm not sure you're in love with me anymore. Not the way you used to be. And maybe I'm not that woman anymore. Maybe I can't be. She paused. And maybe that woman you saw this weekend was someone you could love again. I stared at her, stunned. You're saying this like you'd be okay with it, I said. With us. With me. And her. Amber let out a laugh, short, exhausted. I'm not okay with anything. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I feel erased. She leaned forward. But I also saw something in you this weekend that I haven't seen in years. What? Desire. Later that day, I found Ava on the back patio, barefoot, sipping wine in the early dusk. She didn't jump when she saw me. She just motioned to the chair beside her. I sat. For a minute, we said nothing. Then she whispered, she told you. I nodded. She turned her gaze toward the trees, the sky turning bruised and soft around the edges. I never meant to fall into this, she said. At first, I was just playing the part. A thrill. Something stupid. But then, she met my eyes. Then I stopped pretending. My stomach flipped. I told her I'd leave, she said. If that's what she wants. If that's what you want. I don't know what I want, I said honestly. I just know nothing feels real anymore. Except what happened this weekend. And that terrifies me. She didn't touch me. Didn't move. Just said, you weren't a test to me. I looked at her, the wind lifting strands of her hair. Her lips parted like she wanted to say more, but didn't. And neither did I. Because whatever came next, it was no longer about what felt right or wrong. It was about what felt true. And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure the truth belonged to just one woman. I left the next morning. No bags. No fight. Just keys in the bowl, door closing behind me, and the sound of Amber's soft footsteps not following. I drove without a plan, miles ticking by like heartbeats. I don't even remember the gas station where I bought toothpaste and a change of clothes. All I know is, by nightfall, I was in a quiet motel room 2 towns away with a buzzing light, a stiff bed, and no one to lie to anymore. That first night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, retracing everything. Amber's lips, Ava's hands, the way one of them laughed louder, the other softer. One touched me like she'd memorized me. The other, like she wanted to rewrite me. And I couldn't decide which one I missed more. Over the next few days, I spiraled through memories, trying to separate the two of them. I replayed that hike, Ava's hand finding mine, the way she matched my stride. But then I remembered the first time Amber and I hiked that same trail 7 years ago, when she'd stopped halfway up and pretended to twist her ankle just so I'd carry her the rest of the way. We laughed the entire descent. That used to be enough. Now I couldn't remember whose laughter had belonged to who anymore. I remembered the night we made love on the floor, how her breath hitched, how her fingers clutched my hair. I wanted to say it was Amber rediscovering herself, but it wasn't. It was Ava. That realization made my skin crawl and ache. I was furious with myself for not knowing, for not wanting to know. Amber texted once on the second day. I'm not asking you to come back, just to breathe. I'm breathing too. I didn't reply. Ava didn't text at all. Smart, probably. I spent hours walking unfamiliar neighborhoods, staring at old couples on porches, young ones in coffee shops, everyone pretending love was easy, or at least simple. None of them could imagine choosing between the woman you married and the woman who became her in every way but name. Was I a cheater? Amber had set the trap. Ava had played her part, but I still let it happen. Still kissed her. Still pulled her close when I knew something was wrong. Still wanted her. Even now. Even after. I called my brother on the 3rd day. Told him I needed to stay with him for a bit. No questions. Just space. He didn't press. When I showed up at his door, he handed me a beer, nodded toward the spare room, and said, "Figure your shit out." So I tried. I journaled. Talked to a therapist over Zoom. Walked longer every day. But every night, I lay awake with 2 ghosts, both alive, both wanting me in different ways. One I had promised everything to. The other had given me back a version of myself I didn't know I'd lost. 2 weeks in, I dreamed of them. Amber in our kitchen, Ava in the doorway. They wore the same smile, same dress. But when I tried to speak, neither answered. I reached for Amber. She faded. I turned to Ava. She stepped closer, but I couldn't touch her either. I woke up sweating, and I finally understood. It wasn't about choosing. It was about losing. I went back to the house on a Tuesday afternoon. The sun was low, the air thick with coming rain. Amber opened the door before I could knock. She looked different. Eyes darker, softer, like someone who had stopped expecting anything. I stepped inside. Everything was where I left it. Shoes by the door, books on the shelf, the scent of her shampoo in the air. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like memory. She didn't hug me, just gestured to the couch. We sat in silence for a long time. Then she asked, "Did you find your answer?" I swallowed. No. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. "You're not the only one who broke something," she said. "I set fire to us, Liam, hoping it'd reveal the cracks." And it did. "Yes," she said, nodding slowly. "Too many." I looked at her. "Do you want me to leave?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "Part of me does. Part of me wants to pretend none of this happened. Go back. Rewind." "I can't," I said. "I know." Silence again. Then she said, "I miss you, but I don't trust you." "I don't trust me." Amber nodded. "That's how I know we're not okay." That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I stayed in the guest room, the one we used to call Ava's when she visited. The sheets smelled like lavender and dust. At 2 a.m., I stood in the hallway between the 2 rooms, unsure which door I belonged behind. And that was when I realized something even worse than betrayal had happened. I wasn't in love with Amber anymore, and I didn't know when that stopped. Amber texted me on a Sunday afternoon, for weeks after everything fell apart. "Come over tonight. Just to talk. Ava's here." No punctuation. No heart. No smiley face. Just clinical. Careful. Like the words were stepping across thin glass. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Okay. When I pulled into the driveway, I had to sit in the car for a few minutes, breathing through the weight in my chest. The house looked the same, but it no longer felt like mine. I walked up slowly, half expecting the door to be locked, to find it all a mistake. But it opened before I could knock. Amber stood there, barefoot, no makeup, wine glass in hand. Her eyes swept over me like she was measuring what had changed, maybe trying to decide if she missed any of it. She didn't smile, but she didn't close the door either. I stepped inside. Ava was in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside the coffee table, a bottle of red uncorked and breathing between two more glasses. She wore a gray sweater, loose, off the shoulder, and black jeans. Her hair was tied up, messy and soft. She looked up when I entered. No grin, just a nod. Hey, hey. I stood awkwardly for a moment, caught between them like a hinge. Amber gestured to the couch. Let's talk. For the first few minutes, it was exactly that. Talking. Flat and quiet. We touched on safe ground. Therapy, space, the logistics of mail still arriving in my name. Ava refilled glasses, but said little. Then the air shifted, a long pause after a question about work, and suddenly the conversation broke open like a floodgate that had held back too much for too long. Amber leaned forward, elbows on her knees. I can't stop replaying it, Liam. All of it. Every hour of that weekend. I met her eyes. I can't either. I keep wondering which laughs were mine, which touches were hers. If you ever looked at her and saw me. I did, I said. At first. But then. She nodded. Then she wasn't me anymore. Ava spoke finally, her voice steady. I never tried to be you after the second day. Amber looked at her. No. I know. That's what made it worse. Silence. Then Ava added, I'm not sorry it happened, but I'm sorry it hurt you. Amber didn't respond right away. She just picked up her glass, swirled it, and whispered, You were the first person who reminded him how to look at someone like that again. And I hate that it wasn't me. That cracked something in the room. I shifted forward. You don't know what it did to me. I've spent weeks trying to figure out if I betrayed you, or just finally admitted how empty we'd become. Amber's lip trembled. Maybe both. Ava looked between us. You both still love each other, but you don't know what to do with it. Neither of us argued. Then Ava asked softly, So why did you invite me tonight? Amber hesitated, then turned to her sister. Because I needed to see you. Both of you. Together. Her voice was shaking now. I've hated you. I've missed you. I've wanted to scream at you and hold your hand in the same breath. But mostly, I couldn't stand how alive he looked when he was with you. She turned to me, and I couldn't ignore how dead we'd become. Tears welled in her eyes. I think I let it happen. The distance. The detachment. I watched you drift, and I thought he'll come back. But you didn't. She looked at Ava again, and you stepped in before I realized how far he'd gone. No one moved. The wine sat forgotten between us. And then, for the first time in weeks, I told the truth out loud. I don't want to choose. Both of them looked at me. I've tried. I've torn myself in half trying to pick one, trying to justify which love matters more. But it's not that simple. You both know me in ways I forgot I needed. You challenge me differently. You see different pieces. I paused, heart pounding. You don't replace each other. And I don't want to pretend you do. Amber's expression broke. A tear slipped down her cheek. Ava whispered, Then what do we do with that? That night didn't end in sex. It didn't end in decisions. It ended in the three of us sitting on the floor, passing wine around like it was some ancient sacrament, unpacking every feeling we'd buried for years. Pain, longing, fear, regret, love. There were tears, laughter. One moment when Amber touched Ava's hand and didn't pull away. We stayed like that for hours, until our words ran out, until the silence felt full, not heavy. At one point, Amber looked at me and said quietly, Maybe this worked because it broke everything open. Maybe we were too careful for too long. Ava nodded slowly. Maybe honesty's messier than we thought. I reached for their hands, one on each side. I'm still scared, I said. Amber replied, Me too. Ava whispered, Good. And for the first time since that weekend, I didn't feel split in two. I felt whole. But we all knew, whatever came next, it wouldn't look like anything we'd seen before. It didn't happen like a fantasy. No dimmed lights. No soft music. No choreographed confession of desire. It happened on a Thursday night, 2 weeks after the talk, in Amber's kitchen. Leftover wine, 2 empty takeout boxes, and all three of us still pretending not to be orbiting something unspoken. We've been doing this for days. Late dinners, shared silences, accidental touches that lasted too long. Like circling a fire, daring it to catch. And it finally did. Ava stood to grab another bottle from the counter, brushing past me, just a little too close. Her hip touched mine. Not an accident. Not anymore. Amber saw it, held her glass a little tighter, said nothing. Ava returned and sat beside her, pouring the wine with slow hands, watching the glass fill like time stretching. I keep thinking about that weekend, Ava said suddenly. Amber didn't look at her. You said you wouldn't bring it up. I said I wouldn't lie about it. Amber was quiet. Then, so don't. I didn't feel guilty, Ava said. Not then. Not until I saw your face afterward. I shifted in my seat, heart thudding. Amber stared into her glass. Because it wasn't guilt you felt. It was envy. Ava blinked. What? Amber turned to her. You wanted what I had. And I wanted what you had. We just broke everything trying to get it. The silence after that was thick enough to choke on. Then Amber looked at me. I loved you enough to let someone else remind you what that felt like, she said. And I hate that I did. She turned back to Ava. And I hate that you loved him back. Ava's eyes glistened. I didn't mean to. I know, Amber said. That's what makes it worse. I stood. Couldn't sit still anymore. My chest was a battlefield. Stop, I said. Both of you. You keep trying to blame each other. But this happened because we let it. Because all of us wanted something we couldn't name. Amber met my eyes. So name it. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Then said, connection. Not roles. Not titles. Not versions of who we used to be. Just this. This messy, impossible thing between us. They were both silent. Then Ava stood too. Then stopped running from it. She stepped toward me, and I felt it in my bones, the gravity, the hunger. Her hand slid to my chest, warm through the fabric. I didn't pull away. Then, gently, Amber stood too. And something shifted. She reached for Ava's hand, hesitated, then held it. Just for a moment. The smallest act of surrender. I'm not pretending anymore, Amber said. And I don't want you to either. Her eyes found mine. So if this happens, it's not a game. Not a kink. Not a revenge story. No, I said, breath shallow. It's something else. And it was. It started in the living room. Not sex. Not right away. Just touches. Ava kissed my neck. Amber slid her fingers under my shirt, slow and unsure, like she was exploring a familiar place made new. Clothes disappeared between silences. A shoulder here. A hip there. Nothing rushed. No one leading. We moved like a single breath, letting instinct replace fear. At one point, I kissed Ava's collarbone, and Amber didn't flinch. Then I kissed Amber's mouth, and Ava didn't stop me. There was no jealousy in that moment. No possession. Only permission. We ended up on the rug, limbs tangled, mouths hungry. But it wasn't about more. It was about all. Amber on my left, Ava on my right. Fingers in my hair. Teeth at my neck. Laughter, soft and ragged. I tasted them both. Touched them both. Loved them both. And they let me. They touched each other, too. Not as sisters, but as women peeling back years of tension and silence. There was something raw about it. Something holy. Three people, stripped of shame, of loyalty, of old definitions. For once, not pretending. When it ended, we didn't speak. We lay in the warmth of what we'd done, hearts thudding in unison. Amber rested her head on my chest. Ava's hand found hers between us. And neither pulled away. For the first time since the joke that started it all, the air wasn't tense. It was clear. Later, as we stood in the bathroom, all of us brushing our teeth, silently grinning like kids who broke the rules. Amber caught my eye in the mirror. Are we broken? She asked. I met her gaze. No. Ava leaned into the doorway, sleepy, mascara smudged. We're just not traditional. Amber smirked. That's the understatement of the century. But her smile was real. And mine was too. Because whatever line we'd crossed, it didn't feel like cheating. It felt like the first honest thing we'd done in years. Sunlight crept across the floorboards like it was nervous to enter the room. I opened my eyes slowly, body aching in places that hadn't felt alive in years. Amber was curled against me, her hand resting softly on my chest. Ava's leg was slung over mine, her breath warm on my shoulder. We were tangled beneath a single sheet like vines, quiet, still, and impossibly close. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a husband who had failed or a man caught between two impossible choices. I just felt human. The silence was different now, not heavy, not waiting, just there, honest. Amber stirred first, blinking awake, then looking up at me with a question in her eyes. "Hey," I whispered. Her lips curved into a faint, sleepy smile. "Hey." Then Ava shifted behind me, stretching. Her hand brushed Amber's by accident. Neither pulled away. No one spoke for a long time. We just stayed there, breathing in the morning. No secrets left between us. Eventually, we got up, slowly, like we were moving through a dream. I pulled on boxers, Amber one of my t-shirts, Ava a blanket wrapped around her like a robe. We migrated to the kitchen, where Ava started coffee. Amber leaned against the counter, watching her. I leaned in the doorway, watching them both. There was a weird calm in the air. No awkward glances. No regret. Just three people trying to understand what they were now. "I thought it would feel worse," Amber said, almost to herself. Ava glanced back. "It doesn't." Amber shook her head. "No, it feels honest," I offered. She met my eyes and nodded. Ava poured the coffee, set 3 mugs down, then exhaled. "So what now?" We sat down around the kitchen table, the same one where the idea had started, as a joke, a swap, a dare. Now we were sitting in the aftermath of it. Amber took a sip, then said, "I don't feel like I'm competing anymore." Ava smiled, soft and unsure. "That's good. It's freeing." I looked between them. This doesn't have to mean anything it doesn't. No labels. No pressure. We don't have to figure everything out today. "Agreed," Ava said. Amber nodded slowly. "But we should agree on something." I hesitated. "Like what?" She looked down at her cup. "No lies. No more pretending. If this is going to be a thing, whatever this is, it has to be real." Ava reached across the table, her fingers brushing Amber's. "I want real too," she said. Amber didn't pull away this time. The day unfolded like something unspoken had finally exhaled. We made breakfast together, laughed at how sore we all were, watched old sitcoms in pajamas, the three of us sharing the couch like we had 1,000 times before. But this time, the tension wasn't lingering. It had broken, and what remained was something quieter, stranger, but solid. At one point, Amber walked up behind me while I was rinsing dishes and wrapped her arms around my waist. "I feel like myself again," she whispered. I turned and kissed her forehead. "I missed you." Then Ava passed by and swatted me on the butt. "Don't get soft on us now." Amber laughed. A real, open laugh. The sound made something warm uncoil in my chest. We didn't sleep together again that night. There was no pressure to. No need to repeat it to prove something. Instead, we shared a bottle of wine on the porch. Amber on my left, Ava on my right. A blanket draped over all three of us. Stars above. Crickets in the background. The kind of stillness that feels earned. Ava rested her head on my shoulder. Amber reached across and tucked a strand of hair behind her sister's ear. Then she looked at me and said quietly, "I feel free for the first time." I nodded. "So do I." Ava said nothing, just smiled through tears. Later, as we got ready for bed, I stood in the doorway of the bathroom watching them, brushing their teeth side by side, playfully elbowing each other, like they were girls again. Before life complicated everything. Before I was part of the equation. But now, I was part of this. Whatever this was. And for once, I didn't want to define it. We crawled into bed together again. No pretense. No performance. Amber on one side, Ava on the other. My hands found theirs under the covers. And this time, it wasn't about passion or adrenaline or guilt. It was about peace. About not having to choose. Because some people aren't halves of a whole. They're mirrors. Reflecting different parts of you back. Teaching you who you are. And who you could still be. That night, as I drifted off between them, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't broken. I was just finally whole. We live on the edge of town now, just far enough from the center that nobody knows us. Or at least, nobody cares. The house is old. All creaking floorboards and crooked door frames. The kind of place that would have driven Amber crazy 5 years ago. Now she calls it charm. The guest room became a shared studio. Amber paints again, long, sweeping canvases in oil and ash and color that looks like emotion peeled from skin. Ava writes in the mornings, usually barefoot with tea and earbuds, tapping away at essays she says she'll never publish. I rebuilt the back porch with my own hands. The wood splinters if you lean wrong, but it holds. Like us, we never put a label on what we are now. Not marriage. Not polyamory. Not whatever word people reach for when they want to box chaos into something manageable. It's just honesty. Some days, it's the three of us reading on separate couches, existing quietly but together. Other days, it's more. Some nights it's just Amber and me, slow and familiar. Other times, it's Ava and me, fierce and silent. Sometimes it's all of us, stripped of rules, but always with consent, always with clarity. No lies, no masks. That's the only thing we agreed to keep sacred. People assume it's about sex, that it has to be, that if three people share a bed, it must be about indulgence or rebellion. But they don't see the mornings. Amber burning pancakes and swearing under her breath. Ava trying to explain the latest article she read about dopamine pathways. Me standing at the sink, listening to them bicker over the thermostat, realizing I've never felt more at home. They don't see how we check in, not just about logistics, but about feeling, about space, about fears. They don't see the love notes Amber hides in my shoes, or the sketches Ava leaves on the fridge, stick figure comics that make us laugh harder than we should. No one sees the quiet work it takes to live like this. They only see the parts that make them uncomfortable. And that's fine, because we didn't do this for them. Amber's mother visited once. She looked at us like we were furniture arranged wrong. We kept it polite, didn't explain much. She left after 2 days and hasn't returned. Ava said, she's afraid of anything she can't name. Amber just said, she's afraid of anything that makes her look at herself. One night, months after we'd settled into this new rhythm, I stood in the hallway outside the bedroom. The mirror there had cracked during the move, one clean break through the center. Amber wanted to replace it. Ava said, leave it. So we did. That night, I looked into it and saw all three of us reflected, just slightly misaligned through the fracture. Amber behind me, brushing her hair. Ava leaning in the doorway, sipping wine. We weren't whole in the traditional sense, but we were real. That mirror stayed broken. Still is. And every time I pass it, I think about the people we used to be, the roles we thought we had to play. I used to believe love was a straight line. Husband, wife, vows, forever. But life twisted it. Love became something messier, stranger, more human. And that's what saved us. I don't tell people how to live. But if someone asked me what I've learned, I'd say this. Sometimes you fall in love with two women. Sometimes those women are sisters. Sometimes they both love you. In different ways, for different reasons. And instead of tearing everything apart, that truth reveals something you didn't know you were missing. Sometimes love doesn't fit inside one person. And sometimes, pretending it should is what breaks it. We sit on the porch most evenings now. 3 chairs, 1 blanket. Amber paints sunsets she doesn't show anyone. Ava reads aloud until her voice goes soft. I listen, hand in one of theirs, feet up on the rail. And sometimes I think back to that night, when Ava joked that Amber could swap with her and I wouldn't notice. We laughed. Amber didn't deny it. And that moment, that spark, set fire to everything we thought we knew. It burned us down. But the rebuild? That's where the truth began. They stopped pretending to be the same woman. And I stopped pretending I could love only one.